That sort of was hard to say.
Statement only.
Here's a favourite old bush song, and we'd like you all to sing along.
The old gum tree.
Welcome to the Thunda Down Under. The all-Aussie alternative and metal music showcase.
Fly a flag on your aerial.
And how about your host, eh? Kane Villa Fella.
Hey, how you going, guys? It's Matt here from Celestial Burial, Carry Terre, Dark and Winter, Inverted Tomb, Christ Dismembered, played in quite a number of other bands as well. Yeah.
What's up, legends? You're listening to the Thunda Down Under on Front Row Radio. This is our November show featuring a very special guest from Adelaide, Matt Ford of many wicked bands, including Celestial Burial, as we just heard, and a fair few other projects that we're going to check out throughout the show. I had the great pleasure of catching up with Matty Ford for a very enjoyable night of reflection and conversation over several bevies. So be sure to stick around to get a listen to some of that conversation that I'll be featuring in and throughout the show. We got a stacked lineup, 2.5 hours of brutality, many of which are Matt Ford's projects. And of course, another month, another winner will be announced for our random listeners prize draw. As well as all that, guys, you can expect some Tranquility Unknowns, Severed Raw Nerve, Brick Fist Bushrangers, Black Serenade, Calvath, Grim Ripper, and Van Demon, just to name a few.
to drink because I got the munchies. I've been smoking dope. I got the munchies.
Matty, very important question, bro. What is your favourite Australian beer?
Yeah, so favourite Australian beer would be Cooper's Pale Ale.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, man. What do you think are the strengths in your music?
Strengths in our music. Celestial Burial, project that I do with Aaron. He's from Perth. Yeah, I reckon the strengths with Celestial would be the music is pretty original. You know, we try to add a lot of different influences and stuff in there. And then we also do Carry Terre. And that's, you know, we have fun with that. We just add crazy samples and it's just a good time.
And I mean, there's a definite, like, it's you and Aaron Mangano.
Yep.
And there's a definite, like, difference in, the style there.
Definitely.
Celestial's a lot more polished, a lot more sort of intricate.
Yeah.
In the music, and then Carry Terre, as you're saying, you have a lot of fun with that, and it's raw. Yeah. And it's grindy, and it's
and that's kind of what we wanted to go for with Carry Terre, was just have it a little bit more simplified than Celestial, so music-wise and stuff, and just have it sort of heavy and groovy, and everyone can sort of get into it. It's not overly complicated. It's fun. It's a fun project. So, we've recently released our self-titled album earlier this year, and that's getting a lot of good recognition as well.
Yeah, and so it's like it's kind of like, for me, it's the pinnacle of both genres. Like, you're looking at more core with Celestial, and then you're looking at like just proper grind, proper slam sort of with Carry Terre.
100%. I mean, Celestial Burial, the first album, Genocidal Extinction, was more for the deathcore sort of side of things. So a lot of like breakdowns, all that sort of thing in there. Whereas with Hymns of Horror, the second album, we kind of went technical death metal approach with that one. Third album that we're working on will definitely have same elements, sort of more of a technical death metal / black metal elements in there as well.
Yeah.
So we're working on that, and hopefully that'll be more details out about that soon.
Yeah, which is a good amalgamation of your chosen styles, really, and your abilities.
Yeah.
I feel like Celestial is a real testament to an amalgamation of your black metal stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And your core stuff, and then like really shreddy, really intricate, and then Terry, it's just fun. It's
It
just
is.
slam your head.
It is, man. 100%. I
Carpet
mean,
burn your forehead.
even when we did the album, it was fun. Me and Aaron were sending samples, like intros for the songs back and forward, and we're just like laughing our asses off, man. It was so funny. And then we went with the samples that we put on the album, and we just kind of tried to push the envelope a bit to see how offensive we could be. I mean, people are liking it, so it's good.
Two very differentiated projects, and
Definitely.
really nice to hear the contrast, but you can definitely tell Terry has a lot of fun. And just
Songs aren't overly complicated, not like Celestial, so it's more sort of fun and heavy and everyone can get it.
Opening the show there, we had Celestial Burial, one of Matty Ford's projects. That was Burning Hell Furnace, which is one of the tracks off their recently released 3-track EP, Pit of Splatter. That track actually featured some guitar work in the outro there by necropathy. Guys, if you're looking for a celestial burial fix, you'll find them on Bandcamp. And you can also purchase some of their wickedly illustrated merch from their Bandcamp shop. We then jumped to Sydney with the metalcore tyrants Never See Tomorrow, their single The Reality of a Dream. Then guys, we moshed into another project of Matty Ford's, Caro Terre. I Got the Munchies is a track off their self-titled debut album, of which you will find their discography on Spotify and all major streaming platforms. And finishing up that segment, a track from none other than Segression. That track was Refuse to React off of their 2014 album and latest release, Painted in Blood.
Hey, this is Aaron Mangano from Couple of Concrete. You're listening to the Thunder Down Under on Front Row Radio.
Aussie! Aussie! Aussie!
Oi, oi, oi.
kids love to eat. Aussie kids are wheat fix kids. Aussie kids are wheat fix kids. Aussie kids are wheat fix kids. Aussie kids are wheat fix kids.
The Thunder Down Under.
Yeah, so favourite gigs. One of the first really good gigs that I can remember playing was Bobfest. And we played at the old Borough Jail here in South Australia, and it was a festival.
What a setting.
Yeah, an old jail, and we headlined. It was pretty funny because it was a complete alcohol-free event. So all the bands, when they rocked up, they basically said to everybody, make sure you don't bring alcohol in or anything illegal,
So it was an actual functioning jail gig?
Oh, no, so the jail wasn't functioning.
It was just not a non-licensed event.
It was an all-ages event. So, it was pretty funny because, we headlined and it was awesome. Like, we had a really good crowd, but I remember thinking, like, okay, you don't sell beer, but they're pumping everyone full of energy drinks. So, like, everyone's just going nuts anyway, like hypo and, so, yeah, that was a pretty good gig.
What project was that?
That was actually a band I played in the early 2000s called Till Death.
Okay,
And we did quite a few shows around Adelaide. We got really well known, put a demo out. We did some East Coast shows in Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah, and then just some rural stuff. We played in Mount Gambier. Yeah, all around the place. But that was a really good time.
And what genre would you consider that? Yeah,
that was more, I guess, hardcore thrash influence sort of stuff.
Yep. Cool.
We had a really good following though, and it was good. And then gigs after that, I reckon doing the East Coast shows with Cavemen was actually really good, and playing in Melbourne and Sydney, and it's probably not a great gig, but we played in New South Wales at Hamilton Station Hotel, and it wasn't promoted very well, so we literally played to the bands, just the other band members, and I think there might have been like 2 people there.
Yeah.
And we travelled from Sydney on the train. Like, we'd been up all night. We played Sydney the night before. Yeah, we pretty much travelled on the train. All of us still, like, hungover and drunk and, And then, rocked up to this gig and...
Just as well, there was only 2 other people there.
Yeah, it's pretty much like 2 or 3 people there, and we're just like, shit, okay. So we're just going to, we'll just... we still ripped it. We toured with a grindcore band actually called Granny Fist, which they was, pretty...
Aussie band? Yeah, sick. Gotta look them up.
Yeah, from Sydney. They were touring their album at the time called Double Penetration.
Cover your ears, kids.
It was so rough, man. Like, we were just, but it was a good time.
Yeah, double penetration usually is pretty rough, it's always a good time.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole tour was actually not too bad, and then we went up to Brisbane, Gold Coast. Those shows were really good. Probably the best show that I played lately would have been with Christ Dismembered.
Yeah.
We played at the Bendigo Hotel in Melbourne in January this year, and we headlined that with Dead Space, and that was a really good show. That was sold out, and that was really good. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. Like, Christ Dismembered definitely have a massive following.
Man. Yeah,
they've kind of set the benchmark in death, Australian death, like modern Australian death.
Yeah, and we put out our album earlier this year.
Of Vampiracy?
Of Vampiracy, yep. And we recorded that, got all that done, and then played some shows off of playing some new stuff, and then just having a bit of a break at the moment from it. And,
yeah. Nice, man.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Guys, that was the femme-fronted dirty death metal band from Perth, Kelvath, with their track Saddest of Circumstance. Which brings me to introduce Aaron Mangano, who is the bass player for those guys. And along with that is also one of the masterminds working with Matty Ford on Celestial Burial and Caro Terre. And that takes us to the opening track of that segment that was titled The Sickening by Cunt Full of Concrete, another one of Aaron Mangano's projects. Second up, a classic from Disembowelment, Excoriate. And second from last, Belle Accord, Foothold. And next up, a little ditty, one of my projects. This is Snake's Evils, here on the Thunder Down Under, Front Row Radio.
Choose the lesser of two evils. Always remember that it is still an evil.
We'll
Yeah, so favourite Australian influences or favourite bands would probably be Advent Sorrow. I was really like their stuff. Black metal band from Perth. The Furor, also black metal band from Perth. Dead Space, great guys, great music. Yeah, other Aussie bands. Ruins from Tassie, they're really good. I've seen those guys twice, supporting Satyricon and Immortal, both bands from Norway. That was really cool.
How epic would that be?
That was good, man.
Satyricon and Immortal.
Yeah, man.
With Ruins.
Yeah, well, I seen them separately, but Ruins supported both of those bands.
Yes.
Yeah, seen Satyricon when they were touring their Now Diabolical album, which was quite a while ago now. But great show. Yeah, and Immortal, one of my favourite black metal bands. Yeah, seeing those guys live with the original lineup before Abbott left. Yeah, really good.
My dad picks the fruit that goes through putties to make the cordial that I like best. My dad picks the fruit that goes through putties to make the cordial that I like best. My dad picks the fruit that goes through putties to make the cordial that I like best.
Kids deserve Cotty's cordials. Cotty's.
And the Thunder Down Under, right here on Front Row Radio. Opening that segment, guys, we had one of my projects, Snakes. We're a two-piece studio-based project from Tasmania. That single was titled Evils. You'll also find our entire discography on Spotify and all major streaming platforms. Then we kicked into Carpathian, Holding Hands is for Girls. Third up, we had another one of Matty Ford's projects, Christ Dismembered, Mother of Demons, from their latest album of Vampiracy. And we finished up that segment with an instrumental from Mournful Congregation that was titled The Incubus of Karma. Heading over to Tasmania with Tranquility Unknown. one of the latest singles from North Lane there from their Node Reloaded album. That single was released in 2025 October. That was Rot.exe. And before that, we had Matty Ford once again with one of his solo projects, Inverted Tomb. That was Carried by Dust and Wind from his Storming Across the Sky album. Second up in that segment, Thy Art is Murder, Reign of Darkness. And we kicked off with a Tasmanian band, Tranquility Unknown. That track was titled Titans Fall. We featured those guys in one of our episodes earlier on, and since they've released their debut album, Broken Silent, that track was one of the tracks from that album. Tranquility Unknown are a deathcore / metalcore band from the northwest coast of Tasmania, taking influences from the scene classics all the way through to the current cutting edge of heavy music. They combine big 7-string riffs, dominating drums, virtuoso lead guitar work, and genuinely scary vocals with a sharp sense of dynamics to create catchy, memorable, and unique moments and songs. They have so far supported the likes of North Lane, Inertia, and The Ascended. Their debut album includes 8 tracks of violent ear candy, haunting melodies, and monstrous breakdowns. Mixed and mastered by Alpha Wolf's Scotty Simpson. They have encapsulated a unique and heavy sound with influences from past and future. Combined, it's the foundation of their sound. If you like what you heard, guys, check them out on YouTube. They just released a new music video of the title track, Broken Silent, from that album.
We
Interesting stories from playing live, touring, all that sort of thing. The first time I toured, it was pretty full on. Like, we drove the whole way. So we drove to Melbourne, played in Melbourne, literally packed up, and then drove to Sydney and played Sydney. And then, the next day drove back to Adelaide. So that was a long time to all be in a car together. That was pretty full on. Good shows though. Actually, the show that we played in Sydney, we were standing on stage waiting to play, and there was actually a fight breaking out in the crowd between two different groups, I guess. And we're sort of standing there like, come on guys, get your shit together so we can actually play our set.
Yeah.
But that tour was really good. Other memorable touring stories would be recently with Christ Dismembered, flying over to Melbourne to play Bendigo. That was pretty wild. We flew over, didn't sleep for like over 24 hours. Pretty much just flew over there, played, packed up, back at the airport at 5 a.m, hadn't slept. Yeah, a couple of the other guys were getting into the beers and stuff, and but I remember we were that tired by the time we got back to the airport that we forgot to check in. We thought that we'd checked in, and we went through the security checkpoint. And
didn't the manager do that?
No.
Oh shit, we are the managers.
Yeah, so we pretty much forgot to check in. We've gone through the security checkpoint, and then our tickets weren't working. So we're like, we forgot to actually check them in at the start. So we had to go back out, check them in. We've gone through, and then one of the guys has disappeared, and we're like, where's he gone? He's just gone and found a bar and started drinking some more beers.
I thought it was a kebab shop.
Yep. One of the other guys I was with, he pretty much was like, I'm going to go and join him and have some more beers. And I said, well, you enjoy that because I'm not going through the security checkpoint for a third time. So I ended up just sort of waiting at the gate. And oh man, when we all sort of got to the gate and we're waiting there for the flight, we had to wait like 3 hours, I think, for our flight. And we just like crashed out, man, like corpse paint, still had like, remnants of corpse paint and everything. Some of us were, pretty drunk and,
could have been confused with drag queens.
We were sort of sitting there and, a couple of the guys crashed out. Yeah. But then once the flight actually, came and we could get on the plane, there was like a massive lineup to get on the plane. But because we've been sitting there for so long, I think the stewardesses and that noticed that we've been waiting for so long. Yeah. So they just like, yep, you guys, you just go straight through. So they let us cut the line and just go straight in. And yeah, man.
G'day there, this is Darren Gosford Golding, guitar vocal for Severed Raw Nerve, and you are listening to Thunder Down Under on Front Row Radio. Get it in ya.
First track in that segment, we had from Tasmania, the Brickfist Bushrangers with their track Boat Song. That's a single taken from their Tassie Takeover EP that was released in July. Then we had Make Them Suffer, Doom Switch. Third up, we went to Gosford in New South Wales with Severed Raw Nerve. This has been a project in the making by Darren Golding, who has excitingly just been joined by a few other musicians compiling a full outfit. So look out for those guys on the touring circuit. And wrapping up that segment, the powerhouse that needs no introduction, Polaris, Hypermania. Cruising on back to Tasmania again with Black Serenade.
I can see the light
so production and recording wise, I pretty much record everything myself at home, and then I send it to Aaron over in Perth. He does his vocals in his studio over there. He sends them back. I chuck it into the mix and do the mixing. Yeah, and then we just go back and forward from there and sort of tweak things and, make sure we're both on the same page and we like it. And yeah, and that's pretty much how it's all done. Yeah, once we're happy with it, we get it all final mix and all that sort of stuff, and then we send it over to Sydney to Grindhead Records, and they've been doing the releasing side of things. So yeah, that's pretty much about it for all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So Grindhead, they don't process it any further from they go yeah or nay.
Yeah. So yeah, they don't do any tweaking with the mixing or anything like that. Yeah. They've been happy with what we've sent to them anyway, so they're pretty happy with the mix, and so they pretty much just take care of releasing the CDs and putting it up on their store, and then they do merch lines and all that sort of stuff, and so that's pretty much what they do. They also do Grindhead Productions, and they bring a lot of bands over and all that sort of thing too.
The touring side of things.
Yeah.
Omega there with Destiny Machine. And the first track in that segment, Black Serenade from Tasmania, Orphic. Those guys have just released an exciting new video teaser on YouTube, on their channel, teasing a little bit of what's to come from them, some new material in the pipeline. Then we kicked on with Frankenbach, a new track of their latest EP titled Irrepressible, released just this year. I Woke. And just checking out the lyrical video for that one, it's very interesting. Some heartfelt feelings about the new woke trend or movement, agenda, or whatever you wish to call it. Guys, the third track in that segment was none other than Van Demon, of course, from Tasmania. That was a new release from those guys, fresh off the press. A Patient Man, a single from their latest album, Van Demon 3. And here's a review by Mark Pulst of Metal Ruse. From the icy, rugged expanse of Tasmania comes a band that wears its environment as much on its sleeve as in its riffs. Van Diemen's third full-length album, Van Diemen 3 is a masterclass in melodic death/black metal, a record that fuses the fury of extreme metal with the mystique of Tasmanian folklore to deliver something both primal and precise. From the outset, the album asserts its identity. Opening track, TDM, immediately envelopes the listener in a dense, atmospheric wall of guitar harmonics and thunderous percussion, establishing a soundscape that is unmistakably Van Diemen. There's an unyielding weight here, both in the riffs of Scott Lavelle and the muscular rhythm work of Patrick Schmidt, underpinned by Darren Schmidt's resonant bass and Ethan Shaw's punishing drums, yet the melodies never feel compromised. Vocalist Wild Eye returns to anchor the band's sonic aggression, delivering feral growls and soaring choruses that give the album its human pulse. Tracks like A Patient Man, as we just heard, and I'll Die a Free Man showcase his dynamic range, moving effortlessly between guttural rage and melodic clarity, while songs like Shadows of the Dead highlight the band's ability to weave black metal atmospherics into melodic frameworks without ever feeling formulaic. Production by Joe Haley is flawless, capturing the band's intensity without sacrificing clarity, allowing every riff, drum hit, and vocal nuance to shine. The result is an album that sounds massive, immersive, and organic, the kind of record that feels alive. For fans of Mastodon, Early In Flames, or Amorphous, Van Diemen 3 is a triumph. It's melodic death metal with a Tasmanian twist, unforgiving, untamed, and unforgettable. A landmark release for Australian extreme metal. Van Diemen have distilled their environment, mythology, and musicianship into a record that's both brutally heavy and emotionally resonant. A debut that feels decades in the making. Van Diemen, guys, check them out.
Push my bones, I'll tremble, tremble, vocals, The same song dies, reverie and an endless cycle. To fathom the value of consciousness and reality. So rooted inside your soul, reflecting on the eternal storm. Extinguish the flame, my own vessel to carry away nothing left inside of me. Why? Purpose, why? Nothing is right. Nothing ever done to ever sorrow with her for the world. Misery and hope pulling me through its agony. It's a blood from royal blood. Why should it the press of blood? Why not go down? It's a call to the void that will sink back within. Oh! The burden of life. As I try to survive. The burden of life gives me one reason to stay alive. So rooted inside your soul, reflecting on the eternal storm. Extinguish the flame, my own vessel to carry away nothing left inside of me.
Granted life with purpose, but I've been left with this.
Mountain blood, the color burns me below the pressure. Starting to accept this pain, that nothing will change. I begin to disappear. The burden of life. As I try to survive. The burden of purpose. All else is worthless.
Our lovely mighty boys are 4 and 25. A lovely tasty pastry in a 4 and 25. Lots of lovely tender meat, the finest you can buy. Our lovely mighty boys are 4 and 25.
4 and 25s and Cornish pasties, the rich golden pastry. Hoi!
Aye!
Don't forget 'em, 4 and 20. Hoi!
Aye! Our lovely mighty boys are 4 and 25.
The Thunda Down Under.
This is Steiny here from Incinerated and Vestal Cunt Vomit, and you're listening to the Thunder Down Under on Front Row Radio. Cheers for supporting our mates' channel and keep supporting Aussie metal.
sorry, not sorry for the absolute shitstorm of an onslaught. But of course, you just heard probably one of Australia's most heaviest offerings, Portal. That was Curtain. And before that, another brutally slaying track from Incinerated. And it happens that my good mate Justin Steinweiss, or Steiny as we call him, is the axe for Incinerated, as well as another band that we often play on the show, Vestal Cunt Vomit. And that track was titled Table Manners, which just so happens to be one of the 4 new exclusive tracks that were released on their latest offering, Eaten Raw. Me, Sacco, and Ojo Records and P2 are proud to present this compilation of Incinerated's works, featuring 4 exclusive songs along with material from their split releases. Fully remixed and remastered, this is a must-have relic of cult Australian death grind. If churning low-tuned, repugnant guitars atop brutish stomping drums is your kind of thing, especially when met by gurgled, malignant vocals, Incinerated are for you. Putrescent sounds of grinding rot and deathly morbid carnage intertwine on this abominable collection of rancid songs. The unhinged chaos and marrow-spoiling grooves provide a soundtrack to disturbing acts of depravity, as the collection of cult works shows a band whose obscure but respected status must not be forgotten. From the start until the end, despite being from an array of releases, one thing is consistent: total malicious death grinding madness, whether high speed, D-beat groove, or slow chugging fetidness is their chosen method. You will be bludgeoned regardless. The slurping vocals and sticky guitar tones spray stringy fluids from your speakers, while the fly swarm drums sit like the smell of a corpse on a hot day, mighty pungent. For a decade, this band has been busy in delivering only the most grotesque and obscene, and now, with a single long-playing record, you can have an impressive collection of their vilest works. Guys, Eaten Raw is available on Bandcamp, and you can get that on tape, vinyl, or CD from their Bandcamp store. Incinerated. Second up in that segment, Caged Existence, The Burden of Purpose. And kicking off, we had a project from the very talented Ewan Lambert in Yenchep, WA. That was Corpse Flesh, rearranged with a 12 gauge.
Hello, it's Wally from Grimm. This next song is called Samurai Showdown. Hope you enjoy it.
You know nothing of respect or honor, just a maggot, it's his cold thing. Spitting lies with open eyes, surface sun, but it's your blood, your disguise. Every dog has a day, every drop of blood will bring the soul. Watch it all fucking grow.
Yeah, so plans and goals for the future would be obviously Celestial Burial. Well, we are working on a new album. Not too sure on a release date or anything like that yet, but we've got some pretty cool things that are happening that can't really announce right now, but it's going to be really good, and we're hoping to make this album the best one. And yeah, hopefully get that out, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. And Carre Terre, we have a EP that we're working on at the moment. Still in the works of getting all that sorted. But yeah, that's pretty much the two main projects that I'm really focusing on at the moment. Yeah, it's keeping me pretty busy.
Anything from Dark and Winter or...
Dark and Winter? I actually haven't released anything in a few years with Dark and Winter. That's something that I started back in 2007. Had quite a number of releases, about 10 albums and, you know, demos and EPs and splits and all that sort of stuff. But that's just something that I work on in my own time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of on the back burner at the moment, that project.
Flows when it flows.
That's it, yeah. As well as, you know, Inverted Tomb, I released 2 albums with Inverted Tomb, 2021 and 2022, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And that got some pretty good recognition. That was more sort of just raw black metal, you know. So stripping it back to the basics and just going drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and just having it raw.
Yeah.
Whereas Dark and Winter, you know, incorporates more sort of
very orchestral. And lots of layers and
a lot of atmospheric sort of black metal stuff.
Yeah. So you know, like you just kind of playing keys, you're playing bass, you're playing guitar, programming drums.
Yep.
You're doing all your own production.
Yep, doing vocals.
Doing vocals, of course,
as well on both of those projects. Dark and Winter and Inverted Tomb. I do everything myself and just you know, put it out there, and if people like it, cool. You know, and that's, you know, if I like it, that's good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and if other people like it, that's awesome. You know?
Yeah,
so
but it's for you.
It's for me, pretty much,
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And I also have Northwind, which I started in 2010 as well, which is a atmospheric sort of ambient folk project, which is really cool. Had quite a number of releases with that. I was on a compilation as well for H.R. Geiger when he passed.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool.
Oh, shit. How'd you hook that up?
Yeah, I actually just got contacted from a record label, and they just said, would you like to submit a track for this compilation for H.R. Geiger? And I was like, fuck yeah. You know. Probably can't say that on the station, can I?
Fuck yeah, you can.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're all adults, man.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Submitted the track for that, and I've been on a couple of splits and stuff for Northwind as well, and Yep.
Something to burn.
motherfucker. That's why all you can do is talk shit, cause that's all you have. If you coming for me, you gotta come better than that. I've been through too much shit in my life for your pussy ass to bother a motherfucking thing I'm doing. Your blades shoot blood. This is Alpha Wolf, motherfucker. You wanna die? I stay on a rock, count your days, pick her up. You won't take my grave to the blood of blood. You wanna run your mouth cause you can't keep up. So after what? Oh, such a son. You won't take my grave with the blood of blood. You wanna run your mouth. Can't keep up, can't keep up.
Welcome to
The Thunder
It's
Down
that time
Under.
of the show again, guys. We're going to announce our new winner for this month's Random Listeners Prize. And this month's prize package goes to Dwan Bartlett of Ipswich, Queensland, a follower on Facebook. Hopefully, mate, you are tuning in. If you are, get in touch with me on Facebook, Kane Moose Knuckle Vella. Swing me your postal address and I'll have a pretty little prize package coming your way as soon as possible. Courtesy of the bands and artists that have contributed as far to the Random Listeners Prize Pool. Dwan, I hope to hear from you soon.
Place of future left to struggle. There's no memory
kicking off with a band from Albury in New South Wales. That was Grim with their track Samurai Showdown. And second track, guys, another Tasmanian band, Alpha Wolf, Sucks to Suck. That one featured Ice-T. We followed that with some classic Black Majesty, Only the Devil. And we finished that segment with another one of Matty Ford's solo projects, Darkened Winter. The Hammer Cracks Open the Sky. That was a 2022 release. And speaking of Matty Ford and his solo projects, we're going to wrap it up for now with Northwind, Hypnagogia.
Yeah, shout outs and acknowledgements. Definitely Aaron Mangano, vocalist of Celestial and Carry, and he also plays in Calveth and a couple of other different projects that he's currently working on. Yeah, also Ryan from Grindhead Records, all the Grindhead Records crew, they've all been brilliant with releasing the Celestial music and yeah, just getting the CDs out and the merch line with Hymns of Horror. It was just, yeah, it was awesome. Carry we are hopefully looking at doing some live stuff with that. Aaron and I have spoken about even just sort of playing live as a two-piece with a backing drum track or something like that. And some samples and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely on the cards and something we're talking about and trying to plan it all out. And that's pretty much where it's at. And also just all of our fans, everyone that likes Carry Terre, Celestial Burial, all of those projects and bands. And
we at the Thunda Down Under and Front Row Radio would like to acknowledge both the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the original custodians of this land. You've been listening to the Thunda Down Under, the All Aussie Alternative and Metal Music Showcase. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oi.
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 Oh yeah.
Hey guys, this is Matt Ford from Celestial Burial and Carry Terre, and you're listening to the Thunder Down Under on Front Row Radio. Get it into you, get it up you, get it sideways, get it in you.
Just get it anyhow.
As a
matter of fact,
I got it now.